recharge. And if you want to get into the festival spirit, it's a great way to do it. So thank you so much, Indradyumna Swami, everybody.
Good morning. It's almost afternoon. So nice to see so many of you coming consistently for this Kirtan. We just have a few things to offer. We have Kirtan, and we have dancing, and we have some katha in Sanskrit, that means some discussion, and of course, I think you all know in the evening we have this fantastic vegetarian feast. So it's simple, but there's that saying, nice things come in small packages. And it's appropriate. It's an appropriate process of yoga for the age in which we actually live. And speaking about ages, it's interesting that the ancient Sanskrit texts of India, which they're eternal actually, but they were written down, you could say thousands, some sages say millions of years ago. They describe creation from the beginning to the end. Of course, there's no end, but there's creation, maintenance, and dissolution. The creation goes through different stages like that. There's creation, it's maintained, and then it's annihilated, and it all starts over again. It's a whole lecture. But in the process of creation, there's 4 ages. Just like we have 4 seasons, at least in many parts of the world, we have 4 seasons. So the creation goes through 4 ages. It's really interesting. The first age is called Satya. It's called the Golden Age. The second age is called Treta. Yuga, so in Sanskrit for age. It's the Silver Age. Then Dwapara Yuga is the Copper Age. And then comes Kali. Kali means like dark. The Dark Age, Kali Yuga, that's the Iron Age. And I don't want to disappoint you, but we're in the Iron Age. We're in Kali Yuga. And you can understand that by listening to the news, but don't bother. So actually, contrary to science, which says it goes from, worse to getting better, the Vedic view is different. It goes from best to worst. But then the cycle starts all over again. Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. And just like in the 4 seasons that we've all experienced in our lives, there's winter, and then winter, there's spring. Here comes the sun, da-da-da-da. There's spring, then there's summer vacation, and there's autumn, back to school, or back to work. So it's similar. And in each of those seasons, we adjust accordingly. We wear different clothes. When it's winter, we have heavy clothing, and then in the spring, we still a little warm, but we, not so bundled up. Spring, and then summer, we're in our bathing suits, and then come autumn, we put some clothes back. So we adjust accordingly to the time, place, and circumstance, to the age. So in the same way, the sages, the rishis, the yogis, based on these ancient texts and Sanskrit texts. They say there's a different process of self-realization in each of the ages, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. Appropriate. Just like you change clothes, not you change clothes through the seasons, so that the technique or the process for self-realization is a little different in every age. And actually, in the Satya Yuga, it's yoga. Because the process of yoga takes quite some time, actually, to discipline, to learn the asanas, to discipline the mind, to control the senses. Actually, Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita, which is the basic Sanskrit text that transcendentalists study, that the true yogi, he lives in isolation. It's in the Gita. He lives in solitude, so that he's not distracted or not disturbed. He can always fix his mind on the divine. And in order to control his raging senses, because our senses are attracted by so many, we're diverted by so many things in society. Sometimes we don't even have time for self-realization. The yogis live a simple life with high thinking. And modern life is complicated life with little time to think about the higher values of life. So yogis, they leave the cities and they come here to Rishikesh. And we think of Rishikesh as Lakshman Jula and the cafe where you can get bread and cakes, and you could even get pizza. The yogis, they live in the caves. I've been high in the Himalayas. I've been 6,000 meters where you can only stay for a while because there's not enough oxygen. I see the yogis up there. They're living there. They live in the caves, and they maybe sometimes have some small hut. But it says a yogi doesn't eat too much or eat too little. He doesn't sleep too much. He doesn't sleep too little. And the real yogis I've seen, they maintain their body simply for the purpose of a vehicle to transcendence. They know they're not the body. They know they're the Atman, the soul, within the body. So they don't give much difference to the body. It's not like yoga's for, becoming beautiful and strong. It's for transcending the body, actually. So I've seen they don't even cut their fingernails. They don't even cut their toenails. They don't even comb their hair. They have the dreadlocks. This is the yoga of Satya Yuga, and it was the yoga that's been, of course, any form of yoga is good because it has similar benefits, but in smaller proportions. Yoga is excellent for the body, mind, and the soul, but I'm just speaking about these mystics who live in the mountains here. I've seen them. It's something to see someone who's not cut their fingernails in 100 years, their toenails, or cut their hair, their beard, or there's ladies also. We have sadhus and we have sadhvis, renounced. But that, to take to that means it's a little bit difficult in this age. So the next stage is Treta Yuga, and there they have different, you've seen the sacred fires, it's called fire yajna, where there's the fire of Vishnu and you throw the grains and you chant the svaha, and the Brahmins are chanting. That's Treta Yuga. Dwapara Yuga, less and less people are interested in spiritual life as the yugas go on. So in Dwapara Yuga, you go to the temple. I'm sure you've seen the temples with the deities of the Lord, Radha and Krishna, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman, Ganesh, Saraswati. The process in that age was to, with your family, you go to the temple and you pray and you make some offerings. But things diminish day by day in the age of Kali, so as Kali Yuga goes on, people will become less spiritually inclined. So there's a concession made for this age, because the purpose of life remains the same. Atato Brahma Jignasya. Now that we've arrived at the human form of life, now is the time for self-realization. It doesn't just apply to people in India. We're all spirit souls entrapped in these bodies struggling in this world of material existence. This isn't our real home. We're spiritual, we belong in a spiritual abode. So purpose of life remains the same constant. It's a constant factor through all the ages. Just different techniques according to time, place, and circumstance. So because everything becomes more materialistic in Kali Yuga, the Dharma, which means the process for becoming enlightened for the whole world, is this mantra. It's described, it was written down millions of years ago in the Upanishads. Harir Nam, Harir Nam, Harir Nam eva kevalam, kulo nashteva, nashteva, nashteva gutyananyatad. In Sanskrit, if you say something 3 times, it's like, I'm telling you, like my mother used to say, son, you listen to me, you listen to me. And still remember my mother, to make emphasis. So nashteva, nashteva, nashteva. Kalo means the age of Kali. The most easiest and sublime process of self-realization in the age of Kali is to chant the names of the divine, the supreme, the Godhead, the Lord, Radha and Krishna. If you ask anyone in India what's the absolute truth, they won't just say energy or love, or they'll say the divine couple, Radha and Krishna. So singing their names, put very simply, is the process. And whereas it took, hundreds of years, I've actually met yogis I met a yogi who was 220 years old in Vrindavan. He passed away recently. But it is possible through the yogic process to purify the body, purify the mind, purify the soul, so you're not so much influenced by the material energy and you can reach your higher destination. But we don't have that opportunity or privilege ourselves. So therefore, this mantra is recommended, and it's just as powerful as the yoga of Satya Yuga, just as powerful as the ritualistic activities in Treta Yuga, just as powerful and Dwapara Yuga going to the temple. It's just as powerful. It's a concession. Just like sometimes a store, a big fancy store, they're selling their products at a high price, but then comes a sale and you can get the same thing 50% off. So spiritual life's expensive. I mean, you have to really be determined, really give it your all. It's like the yogis, they leave and they go. They're intelligent men and women. They could be, running companies. They could be athletes, entertainers, but they understand the goal, so they go, so they achieve it. But for us, it's not so easy. So therefore, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And the beauty of it is that you don't have to wait so long to feel the effects. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're all struggling in this material world to greater, lesser degrees. We all have our stories. And we're kind of always thinking about that. We get in anxiety, we get in stress, this, the business, and school, and exams, and my health, and my grandma, and this, and the politics. So we're always in anxiety. But as soon as you chant this mantra, it raises you above the modes of nature. You become transcendental for the moment. While you're chanting, you become transcendental. I haven't seen the last 5 days anyone lamenting during the Kirtan. Ooh, ooh. You're all singing, you're all smiling, you're all laughing, and you're all dancing. How often do you get to that state? In the material society, you have to take drugs to get to that state, or get good grades on your exam. That only lasts for a few moments. But as long as we're chanting Hare Krishna, what is this? It's a mystery. It's magical. We're all strangers, different languages, different nations, different, colors of skin, but we're like one. We're united in the process of yoga when we're chanting this mantra. We're dancing, we're singing, so it raises us above. Just like I come from a Christian background when I was young. And I remember one time the priest, he quoted Jesus, he said, to be in this world but not of this world. I always remember that. I said, how do you be in this world but not of this world? Nobody could answer the question until I came to India and I spoke to the yogis who are very advanced. Everyone's on the path, but some are further along. So one yogi, he gave me the example of the lotus flower. He said the lotus flower, there's lots of lakes in India with lotus flowers. The stem of the lotus flower goes through the water and it's actually embedded in the mud, in the mud, at the silt at the bottom of the lake. So the stem comes up, and then there's the leaves floating on the lake, but the lotus flower is above it all. So he gave me that analogy, and after so many decades, the answer came: how to be in this world but not of this world, like the lotus flower. It's a little bit above. It's in the lake, but not of the lake. So we can be like that. We don't necessarily have to go to the mountains and perform such penances and austerities. We can be in this world but not of this world. You can be a businessman, you can be a student, you can be a housewife, you can be an athlete, an entertainer, you can be a politician, you can be in this world. Because that's the way it is in the Kali Yuga. We can be in, but we can be above it all by mantra. It's the mantra that elevates. We're where we are, but we want to have elevated consciousness. Not just we have elevated consciousness when we come to Rishikesh. This place, it's electrifying. It's so spiritual that most of the time your consciousness is very high. But believe it, when you get home, you're going to have a culture shock. Like many people come to India, it's a culture shock. For others, it's that you go home, it's a culture shock. But we have to go back. We have responsibilities. We have our education, we have our career, we have our family, we have our country, we have our world. We have to worry about the environment now. With the first generation, to really worry what we're going to leave our grandchildren. So we have to live in the world. But how to live in the world like the lotus flower? By mantra. Because wherever you go, if you chant this mantra, your consciousness will immediately be elevated. You can be on the bus going to work. You can be, on your way to your next class. You can be watering the lawn. You could be taking a shower. But if you're repeating, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. It's very powerful. It's only 3 words. But don't misunderstand. Mantras are spiritual sound vibrations. They're not of this world. Where does this mantra come from? Like when you meet someone for the first time, what are the 2 questions you ask? What's your name? Where are you from? Right? What's your name? John Smith. Where are you from? Canada. So you get a little bit of idea. Where are you from? Je suis français. Je vis à Paris. Oui, je suis français. C'est bien, monsieur. So you know a little bit about France. Buenos dias. ¿Cómo está? In Mexico. Not Argentina, that's Portuguese. Brazil's Portuguese, Argentina is Spanish. But you get a little bit of an idea, right? So what's the origin of this chant, this mantra? Is it a folk song somebody made up, sitting around one time? Or is it just a little rhyme for children? Or just, no. Golok Prem Dan Hurinam Shan Kirtan, one great saint. It comes from the spiritual world. And there is a spiritual world. There has to be, because if this is reality, birth, death, old age, and disease, I don't want anything of it. Despite the good moments and the happy times. It's a world of duality, and we're looking for absolute happiness. So we have to go to that world. So as much as you can chant, you're elevating your consciousness, elevating, not just in Rishikesh, not just in the morning, 2 hours meditating, but as much as you can chant this mantra during the day, you add to your spiritual bank account. And whereas your material bank account becomes depleted at different times in your life, at the moment of death, you can't take anything with you. You come into this world naked, and you leave naked. You can't take your bank balance. Spiritually, the Gita says, whatever progress you make in spiritual life, you keep it. And in your next life, you start where you left off. When I first heard that, I was like, what? And it's confirmed throughout the Vedic scriptures, the various gurus, they're all say the same thing. Like if you advance 78% in your spiritual life, then your next life you start at 79. You get a little perk there. So Krishna says, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadurlabhaha. After many, many lives, the yogi comes to perfection. After many, many lives. It's a great challenge, the science of yoga. He comes to perfection. So we want to keep adding to our spiritual bank account because that's the purpose of life, the higher purpose of life. But it's said that in this lifetime, as the yogis achieved perfection in Satya, the ritualistic Brahmins achieved perfection in Treta, and the people attained perfection by visiting temples in Dwapara Yuga. In this vicious age of Kali, you can achieve perfection, the same perfection, just by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, because whenever you chant, you come to the spiritual platform. What's the spiritual platform? Eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, happiness. So when you chant, are you not happy? Of course you're peaceful. I could see you were peaceful. But you're content. So it's a universal process. It's meant for the whole world. It's not just here. Of course, for centuries, all these secrets were here in India. And now that storehouse of, that treasure house, the storehouse of nectar it's burst open. And the yoga process is going all around the world. And each person should take to that process of yoga they feel most comfortable with, because we're all works in progress. But I would highly recommend that whatever technique you're